Hey folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. I'm here. It's been a while since I've done one of these, a week or two. Interactive live rant. We'll be discussing some of the topics of the day of interest, the Jussie Smollett verdict, and this Jeff Hardy release. For those of you that may not know what a Jeff Hardy release means per se, he's a professional wrestler. He's been active in the WWE or the WWF since 1995. He's come and gone from the promotion. He's gone to other promotions. He's been very successful. However, this wrestler has had a history of having to go to rehab for various addiction issues. And recently, Jeff was involved in a match, I think just this past week, where Jeff actually abandoned the match. Midway through the match, Jeff left the ring and did not return, and was acting a little bit oddly, not just as a wrestler acting oddly, but as a human being, not living up to his standards of performance. Jeff's like one of these guys that's kind of a daredevil wrestler. He's done a lot of diving off of ladders, gone through tables, really abused his body in the name of pro wrestling. So it's sad to see that. First of all, it's kind of sad to see that he's still wrestling, to be quite honest with you, because I would guess Jeff's about 44 years old, something like that. And if he had, maybe he had saved his money well. Uh, you know, my point is that if Jeff had saved his money better, perhaps he wouldn't even have to be wrestling right now. He could be involved as a trainer or an agent for the wrestlers or something, but not actually performing. And he still does, when he does wrestle, he does pretty well. He still does his thing. I think it was actually about 10 years ago that there was a Jeff Hardy situation where I believe he was the TNA Total Nonstop Action Wrestling World Champion, and he abandoned the title. Not abandoned the title, but he just showed up for a pay-per-view, kind of gonked out of his mind. And they had to really just throw together a quick ending for a match with him and Sting. Sting retained the title, or I guess Sting won the title, but it was just a real cluster, and it looked horrible. And I think that the promotion, TNA, had to do some type of make good with the fans because they knew that the fans got ripped off. So, I mean, I'm not trying to come down on Jeff Hardy, and I know a lot of people are saying things online. They're either making fun of him or they're saying don't judge. I think it can kind of be a little bit of both. I think you can be respectful of the situation, respectful that the guy's going through tough things, but apparently he was actually released this time for the WWE because he refused to get help. They asked him if they said, "Hey, we'll send you to rehab," and Jeff refused the rehab. And no offense to Jeff Hardy, but I don't think he's really in a situation where he should be refusing rehab, especially if the WWE is paying for it. So in my opinion, I will make a fucking opinion. I mean, these are public figures, and they live this life in the public. And Jeff Hardy hasn't been afraid to talk about his problems or even exploit his problems for a storyline in WWE. Last summer of 2020, Jeff Hardy used his real life issues in a storyline against Sheamus. So he's been one to exploit himself when it comes to these things. So he can't, that's the thing with celebrity folks. They want to, talk about their personal problems when they can monetize it, whether it's the Kardashians or whoever else, reality TV people, the Real Housewives or whatever, or, Prince, what's his name, and Meghan Markle. If they can exploit their personal problems and personal situations and personal victories for money, they will. But if they want their privacy, then they demand their privacy. So I'm getting a little sick of that hypocrisy across the board. You know what I mean? If you're going to be a public figure, you're a public figure, but don't pick and choose when your public life demands attention and when you suddenly you can't be bothered. You know what I mean? So I just don't tolerate that. And other things about Jeff Hardy is, look, I'm pulling for the guy, but we've been through this ringer before, and I just don't see a lot of fans kind of recognizing, like, This is a guy who had the TNA title issue. He's done this before. Wasn't there a situation, I believe it was Jeff, with like his house burning down a few years ago? Maybe that wasn't his fault. I don't remember. But it just seems like this guy's caused a lot of drama. He's been involved in a lot of drama. Matt is his own thing, his brother. And it's sad. It's like these guys, not to put them in the same ballpark, but kind of like a Ric Flair, where it's like they just can't stop being themselves. They can't grow up. They can't, you know what I mean? Like a diesel car, you can't switch gears with these guys. So that's just my thoughts. You might disagree. You might agree. You're welcome to leave a comment if you're watching in live time. I know I sprung this on you folks, this live interactive rant. No one was expecting it, but I like to be spontaneous. You know what I mean? Like I don't do a daily podcast. Like I don't host a daily podcast because my life is so interesting and evolving all the time that if I were to do a daily podcast, I would be obliged to sit there in a studio with a microphone and take calls and all that crap. I'd rather just live my life and come to you as I feel like it. What's next? So then you have this Jussie Smollett case. I don't know if there's anything to wrap up about Jeff Hardy. Best of luck to Jeff, but we've been down this road before. Sorry, Jeff, we've been down this road before, buddy. So I'm not going to cry any tears with Jeff Hardy. There's a homeless guy down the street with a sign looking for money. So I'd rather go give him a Sharpie and a piece of cardboard than worry about Jeff Hardy. But in any event, Jussie Smollett, Ahmad coming in. I agree with you about what you are saying about Jeff Hardy. I think it would hurt AEW if they were to hire him, even though it would be a Hardy's reunion. Great point, Ahmed. And I'll leave your comment up there for a moment. If you want to make another comment, please do. Great insight, buddy. Yeah, so there's some talk, like even some fans were speculating, did Jeff Hardy stage this issue and refuse the rehab in order to get fired to go to AEW, where the schedule is lighter? He could team up with Matt. I mean, I've been saying that Matt Hardy is kind of looking like my friend Ox Baker, like when he has that kind of wrestler hook, that wrestler, what do you call it? Wrestler shuffle, like the back is all screwed up. You know what I mean? So I think it would be interesting if the Hardys did come back together. A dream match, the Hardys versus the Young Bucks. Here's my prediction. I made this prediction yesterday somewhere on Facebook. I'll predict the Hardys are in AEW together in June of 2022. That gives 6 months for Jeff to dry out. I do feel that Jeff is struggling, and I do feel for him, but I think he will pop in AEW for just a month or two. I don't think it'll be a long-term deal. And maybe, just maybe, the Hardys will retire. Let them wrestle the Young Bucks, have a big match, and that's be the end of it. You know what I mean? What else? This Jussie Smollett thing I want to chime in on. Look, folks, I guess I'm really kind of disappointed and disgusted that we just say these terms, the left and the right. And the left has to defend Jussie and the right has to condemn him. Well, look, folks, I would say that I'm pretty liberal leaning, left leaning, but I can clearly see that this Jussie guy fabricated this story. he got into a horrible situation, but he put himself into a horrible situation. That's what it comes down to. I think he did try to orchestrate a publicity stunt, a sympathy stunt. I mean, I saw him saying one thing early in this situation 2 years ago, that he said he's the gay Tupac. I mean, come on. The guy is just looking to grandiose himself. And, he took everybody for a ride at a country, the United States, that really doesn't need more division. Jussie added to the problem, not taking away from it, blaming these MAGA hat guys, and I hate to give him credit, but Tucker Carlson said, is it true that Chicago at 3 a.m. is overrun by MAGA hat wearers? I mean, like I said, I'm not a Tucker Carlson fan, but I watched his rant about this Jussie Smollett thing, and he's right. I mean, Chicago is the home of the Obamas, so it's not a place where these MAGA hat people are running around at 3 o'clock in the morning for Subway. People making statements like, "Oh, well, we weren't there. We don't know. We weren't in the jury room." Well, it's like at some point, people just say the common sense test. If something, look, OJ case or this Rittenhouse thing, people are going to have their own opinions. So for people to say, oh, you can't comment if you weren't there, blah, blah, blah. Well, sorry, it doesn't work like that. People are going to have their opinions on things. My opinion, I think Jussie fabricated it. And once he started with that pack of lies, it's difficult for him to get out of it. And I can actually sympathize with that because as a kid, I might have done that as a child, I'm talking about, but I'm not a child anymore. When you're an adult, you have responsibilities. But when you get into a situation where you lie so much and you kind of corner yourself because every time you lie, it gets worse. It's like if you remember that situation with the guy who lied and said he was in the Twin Towers in 9/11, but he wasn't. He basically fabricated a story that his wife told him, took the story as his own, and then he was off to the races with it. So we see a human being walking behind me now. That's very exciting. They kind of have that Oxbaker walk, that Matt Hardy walk of, shuffling around. But the point is, and I'm not trying to make fun of people. I'm just having fun. I'm not making fun. I'm having fun. This thing with this Jussie Smollett thing, I think it would be good if he served some time. It might wise him up a little bit. Put him in the jail for a year. Let him see what hard times is all about. Because he did cost the city a lot of money and he did aggravate a lot of people. And like I said, on a bigger picture, he led to division that we don't need, more division and so on and so forth. But like I do say that, some of these folks that were defending Jussie, and now people are tweeting out this Ellen Page soundbite from a couple of years ago, I believe, with Stephen Colbert. It'd be nice if some of these folks, Kamala Harris, our vice president, or some of these other folks, or even President Joe Biden, would it be nice if they kind of addressed what they said 2 years ago? And if they took accountability for what they said 2 years ago, wouldn't that be nice? Adam's checking in. Jussie better catch up on watching Oz. Nice point. That is pretty good. Oz was a great show. I love that show. The guy that went on to do like the car insurance commercials, that actor is very intense. The guy, he was kind of the Irish guy, McIrish or whatever his name was, the thin guy, white guy. Then you had the guy in the wheelchair. Oz was a great show. I always kind of liked Oz. I favored Oz, as they would say, as they say in the South. I favored Oz over the Sopranos. I always said the Sopranos, like pran, not prawn. Sopranos. Yeah, Ryan something. McHaley or McIvey or something. Yeah, good actor. I'm not sure if you mean the real guy's name or the actor. I saw him in a movie recently. I can't remember what it was, but he was playing the dad. One of these movies that I see in the theater. What else? So Jussie, I say Jussie should go to jail for a year. If I was the judge, jury, and executioner, I mean, I can see this clown using this whole situation to his advantage. As much as I hate to admit it, I mean, the guy got his publicity, right? I mean, it's just trying to be famous, brah. I mean, put Kyle Rittenhouse and Jussie Smollett on a world tour together. You know what I mean? Wouldn't that be something? Coming to your local college for a debate. Jussie and Kyle. Unbelievable. Unbelievable, folks. So what else can I talk about? If there's any other comments or questions, throw them in the mix. This is interactive. We're here. I am in New England. I'm leaving soon. I won't be here much longer. Here's an issue I always seem to run into. I come up here. I have these destination appointments to do. Then there's always people that want to see me. It never seems to work out. It's just because by the time I get here, I'm fucking tired from the drive, and then I need a couple of days to just recoup myself. And by the time it's time to go, I haven't seen everybody. But of course, these people here in New England, they expect me to come drive to their front door. I'm centrally located in New England. They can come see me. About this Nick Khan taking over from Vince. Okay, Adam, good point. I think my buddy AJ was asking about that too. What do I think about Nick Khan? Well, look, here's the thing, guys, and I've been preparing for this for years. Vince McMahon Jr. is getting older. It's not a secret, and if you've seen him look the last 3 or 4 years, he looks like his father looked towards the end of his father's run, which is not good. And, Vince of 10 years ago, 15 years ago, especially in the late 90s, he looked great. Well, it's caught up to Vince. You know what I mean? And maybe the turning point was when he blew out his quads in that Royal Rumble with what's his name, Batista and Cena. But Vince doesn't look so good anymore, and he's getting older. It happens to everybody. It happens to the best of us. Vince has had a great run. I think Nick Khan taking over, it's an interesting proposition. He doesn't seem to have the same love for wrestling as a Triple H or a Stephanie, even a Shane perhaps, and he just sees this as a business. And it does seem like Nick, in my opinion, is looking to get the business sold and looking to pocket the money. And it kind of feels like Nick was a hired gun as the bad guy. Oh my goodness, we got an epic monologue here from Bob. Okay, Bob, I'm going to give this a read. Hey man, what's up? I am just joining in now, but I've seen you were talking about Jeff Hardy, and let me put this out there for everyone. I've been a huge fan of both Jeff and Matt growing up my whole life, and I am a huge fan of both their singles careers too. And let's look at Jeff's situation for a minute. Anyone with an addiction don't overcome it overnight, and maybe this time 18 years later, because 18 years ago WWE offered him rehab and he refused which is why they let him go at that time. But maybe if you get another comment, you have to finish your comment in another thing. Well, I was talking about that. If he's refusing help, Bob, how can we help him? And not mean me and you, but how can the WWE help him? Come on, Mike. You know what 80-year-old Vince is going to be on the cover of Muscle and Fitness magazine. I think that was about 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, I mean, look, Vince has had a great run, but I mean, everybody's great run comes to an end. I mean, look, the older you get, you start seeing your friends and family pass away. You realize that we're all here. We're not here for a long time, so let's be here for a good time. We're all on borrowed time, folks. I mean, that's this fucking worldwide situation the last 2 years. We should have really learned. Bob, I'm interested in you finishing your comment if you can. I got low battery here, so I don't want this live stream to die on me anytime soon. But Bob, please, if you can finish your comment, please do. Look, Bob, you can watch the beginnings of my rant today. I was a little bit harsher on Jeff than you probably were. You know what I mean? But I do feel you. Yet the Pat death really shook Vince, in my opinion. Pat Patterson, that makes sense. Yeah, Pat Patterson was very close to Vince, sitting by the pool. You know, those days of Bruce and Pat by the pool. If you listen to the Something to Wrestle podcast, you hear these stories of Bruce Pritchard without a T and Pat Patterson, I think with 2 T's, sitting around the pool. It's just a different era than all these writers. And look, I try to be, as you know, I applied to the WWE a couple of times as a creative writer, was not hired. Their loss, in my opinion. Okay, here we go. Here, Bob's finishing up. I said he refused because I think Jeff wants to fix his issue on his own without anyone's help and man up to it. Okay, Bob, we'll jump into this. But that hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. You know, he's pushing 44, 45 years old, whatever Jeff is right now, and manning up and fixing his issues on his own. They didn't help when he was having his breakdown on the TNA pay-per-view in the main event. You know, fixing your own problems didn't help then. Hope Jeff doesn't burn his house down again. I did mention that. I don't know if Jeff was the one that burned it down or that was an accident. But Bob, I guess my point is this. I'm not saying that Jeff doesn't have a right to get himself fixed, but we're pushing 20 years of this thing. You said it yourself, 2002. If he was able to fix himself or get himself fixed, why hasn't he done it by now? You know? And so at some point, even as a wrestling fan, imagine what his brother and his close people are going through. As a fan, you can just, I mean, I hate to say it, but you kind of give up on somebody and you wish them the best. But how much can you stand by someone they completely wreck themselves and ruin themselves? And I know, you know, someone might say, well, the Christian answer, Mike, is, you know, stand by them to the very end. Well, okay, but in a practical sense, like I said, the guy down the street there he's looking for a Sharpie to figure out his cardboard sign to get some free change. Maybe I should help him. You know what I mean? Maybe Jeff is about to join Fozzy, perhaps. I mean, I started to watch that podcast, that Stone Cold whatever the fuck, with Jeff Hardy and Steve Austin. To be honest with you, I don't know. It rang very insincere. It rang very it rang very rehearsed. It felt like Jeff's answers were very rehearsed. I couldn't even sit through the whole thing, but Jeff just had this rehearsed kind of tonality to his voice with Austin. And look, maybe it's the business, the wrestling business, jumping through ladders or jumping through tables, jumping awful ladders through tables, getting concussions. Jeff was not a huge guy. He's not a big framed guy. What does Jeff Hardy weigh? Somewhere between 200 and maybe 210 pounds to 235 at the most. So, I mean, maybe his body just wasn't conditioned for all this. Hey, Mike, on the previous mention of Pat Patterson, would you do a live at some stage about the controversy of the 90s with the Ring Boy scandal and steroid scandal? Patterson was definitely involved in it. Well, not to defer that, but I would cross-reference that over on the Monty and the Pharaoh YouTube channel, they did have a guy whose brother was one of the main accusers of Mel Phillips. And so if you find the Monty and the Pharaoh YouTube channel, of which I'm on there as the AEW apologist, you can find that they had the guest. But maybe I will do I just watched the steroid trial, Dark Side of the Ring, the other night. I hear what you're saying, Bob, once again. I hear what you're saying, man, but yeah, you're right. I don't know, but I would love to see him in AEW at some point with Matt and have a retirement match with the Young Bucks. I said that in the video. That would be awesome. Bob, I explored that. I predicted that Jeff would show up in AEW in June of 2022 and have like a 2-month run. And hopefully it'll be a retirement run, to be honest with you. No offense to Matt or Jeff, but I think that these guys need to call it a day as far as in-ring activity. I think their bodies need a break. And I just think that, I mean, if you saw Matt Hardy even, those Sam Rivera matches, remember when he took the chair shot about a year ago? Maybe October of 2020, and that chair almost blinded Matt Hardy or almost knocked him out, or it did knock him out. And he had a couple of things with Sammy. Like, people were really down on Sammy at the time. Some good comments here today, guys. I appreciate it. We've got a nice flow here. Look, like I said, a good friend of mine's a huge Jeff Hardy fan, and we always have these debates about Jeff Hardy. He's very loyal to Jeff. Matt getting concussions on the cement. Yeah. You know, both of these guys just need to call it a day. And I'm not saying that because I don't like them. It's like I'm concerned about their health. That's all. What can I tell you? I mean, but the thing is, guys, you know, some of these wrestlers, they're not really good at anything else. I'm not trying to be insulting, but, you know, it was funny. Steve Austin's putting over Jeff Hardy's artwork on the podcast, but then you look at the artwork, you're like, is that really that good? You know what I mean? Or his music, and it's like, I don't know. Maybe you should stick to wrestling. Stick to jumping through ladders and tables and chairs. Oh my! So what else, folks? I mean, imagine if Jussie Smollett went to prison and he found himself in the same cell with Jeff Hardy. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't that be an interesting reality show? I'm 100% sure Mick Foley has, CTE. I'm trying to remember what that stands for. Concussion, whatever it is. But yeah, the concussion problems. Yeah, man, it's tough. I mean, we hang out with these wrestlers, we see that they're not doing so well, and it makes you feel bad. I remember going to the New England Wrestling Convention in 2013. It still haunts me, seeing Bobby the Brain Heenan there when he had the throat cancer, and it was just sad. It was tough, you know, because, I mean, Bobby was known for his voice and so forth. Well, folks, I'm running low on battery here. I'm going to have to wrap things up. Bob, Adam, everybody, AJ, if he checks in later, really good comments today, guys. I appreciate you being here. I'll be on the road going down the East Coast. I think we got some new comments. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it, everybody. Okay, I did get that AEW jacket to my pal Morrow, the same Jeff Hardy fan. He really appreciated it. And Adam DeMoy, who actually, we heard you, Tony Schiavone. Right now, Bob, I'm in Rhode Island. I'm in good old fashioned Cranston, Rhode Island. JR's barbecue sauce. I lived here for a long time, Bob. Then I moved to Florida. But I'm here right now. I had a movie, Mr. Birthday, premiere last Thursday. Hey, Bobby, what's up, pal? Nice to see you. Bobby Kenny, one of my acting buddies. Thanks, buddy. Thanks, Ahmed. JR's barbecue sauce. Adam gifted me that. It's been coming to good use. It did spill a little bit, but I've got plenty left. Okay, folks. Good to see you. Have a good Friday. Have a great weekend. Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. Please share the videos.